The town of Willow Creek was alive with anticipation. It wasn't every day that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and First Lady Melania visited a small farming community. Banners hung from storefronts, children practiced patriotic songs, and the square was dressed with flags and hay bales. But while most faces in the crowd brimmed with excitement, one man stood apart. Ethan Cole, 52, was a farmer whose family had worked the same soil for 3 generations. His weathered hands told the story of a life spent fighting drought, storms, and endless debt. To his neighbors, he was just another quiet farmer. What they didn't know was that Ethan carried a burden heavy enough to break him. When the convoy of black SUVs rolled into town, the crowd roared. Melania smiled warmly at the children, while Trump waved confidently. Applause thundered, but Ethan's heart pounded for another reason. This was the day he had promised himself he would finally speak, not just for himself, but for every farmer who had been forgotten. Trump took the stage, praising resilience, hard work, and American pride. The words were stirring, but to Ethan they felt hollow. His own farm was 1 season away from foreclosure. His wife Grace had died 3 years earlier after a long illness, leaving behind not only grief, but crushing medical debt. He had sold livestock, worked side jobs, and delayed the bank as long as he could. Still, the walls were closing in. As the president finished his speech, to roaring applause, Ethan's chest tightened. He thought of Grace, of his children, who had left because the farm could no longer sustain them. And before he could stop himself, his voice cut through the celebration. "Mr. President." "Mrs. Trump, what about the farmers who are losing everything?" The square fell silent. Heads turned. Security tensed, but Trump motioned them back. He leaned toward the microphone. "Sir, come forward. Let's hear you out." Gasps rippled through the crowd as Ethan pushed his way to the front. His boots felt heavy, but his resolve carried him. He looked the president in the eye. "You speak of resilience, Mr. President," Ethan said, voice steady. "But resilience doesn't pay medical bills. It doesn't stop foreclosure notices from piling on the kitchen table." A murmur moved through the crowd. Some frowned. Others nodded. Melania stepped forward, her voice calm. "What is your name?" "Ethan Cole," he replied. "My family has farmed here for 3 generations, and I'm 1 season away from losing it all." The silence deepened. Ethan's words seemed to unlock something unspoken in the square. Farmers shifted uncomfortably. Wives lowered their eyes. Someone whispered, "I lost my farm last year." Another admitted, "My son moved away." He said, "There's no future here." Trump studied Ethan, arms crossed. "So you're saying what we've done isn't enough?" "I'm saying speeches don't keep the lights on," Ethan shot back. His voice broke as he added, "My wife died because I couldn't afford the care she needed. I worked every acre, sold every tool I could spare, and it still wasn't enough." The crowd froze, grief settling over them like a blanket. Melania's eyes glistened. She placed a hand on Trump's arm and whispered something. He gave a small nod, then faced Ethan again. "All right," Trump said. "What is it you're asking for?" Ethan drew in a breath. This was the moment. "I don't want handouts. I don't want pity. I want a system that doesn't punish farmers for being human. I want my children to believe this life is worth carrying on." Applause erupted, not the forced kind, but raw, heavy with truth. The people weren't cheering politics. They were cheering survival. Melania stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "Ethan, you've spoken not just for yourself, but for every family here. Too often we see numbers and policies, but behind them are people like you, carrying generations of sacrifice." Her words shifted the air. Farmers straightened. Mothers squeezed their children's hands. For once, they felt seen. Trump leaned into the microphone, quieter now than today. "Let's listen. Tell us what needs to change." Ethan's voice shook, but grew stronger with every word. "It starts with the banks. When my wife got sick, I had 2 choices: pay for her care or pay the loans. I chose her. Any husband would, but no matter how hard I worked, the interest kept growing. They called me irresponsible. But tell me what man wouldn't fight for his wife's life?" Dozens of hands rose when Ethan asked who else had faced medical bills they couldn't pay. The shame on their faces melted into solidarity. "We are not failures," Ethan said. "We're the backbone of this country. Yet we're being broken." The applause that followed was thunderous, almost defiant. And then, from the front row, a boy's trembling voice carried above the noise. "My daddy lost his farm too." The boyno, older than 8, clutched his father's hand, eyes wide but unafraid. His father's lips quivered, tears streaming silently. Ethan knelt to meet the boy's gaze. "What's your name, son?" "Jacob." Ethan smiled sadly. "Jacob, you're brave for speaking, and you're proof of why this matters. We cannot let children grow up believing farming is a curse instead of a calling." The square was hushed, heavy with a unity that no politician's speech had ever sparked. Trump and Melania exchanged a look, moved, shaken, perhaps changed. Trump leaned forward once more. "Jacob, your daddy isn't forgotten. None of you are." For the first time, Willow Creek believed it. The boy's small voice cut through the air. "And neither are you." His hand clung tightly to his father's. The words were simple, but they struck deeper than any speech could. Farmers weren't statistics. They were families, children, futures, waiting to be kept alive. For Ethan, the boy's courage was a reminder. This wasn't just his burden. He was speaking for every voice too quiet to be heard. The square grew heavy with emotion. Farmers who had hidden their struggles for years suddenly found strength. "I sold my tractor to pay hospital bills," one man shouted. "My wife works 3 jobs just to keep us afloat," another added. One by one, confessions spilled into the open. The dam had broken. Silence was gone. Trump raised his hand for calm. His tone wasn't combative, it was steady. "I hear you," he said. "All of you. Silence keeps problems hidden. Speaking the truth, that's the first step toward change." Ethan blinked. He hadn't expected acknowledgement. He had braced for dismissal, maybe anger, but not this. Melania stepped closer, her voice soft but clear. "Sometimes the greatest courage isn't in fighting storms or droughts," she said. "It's in telling the truth, even when your voice shakes." Ethan felt his throat tighten. For years he had believed his pain didn't matter. Now, before the most powerful couple in the country, he realized his voice had weight. Trump stepped nearer, lowering his voice. "I grew up watching my father work every day. He taught me nothing is given you, earn it. Farmers live that truth harder than anyone. But what I've heard today isn't just hard work. It's sacrifice without recognition. Families going bankrupt because they chose love over money. That's not the America we want." The crowd stirred. Ethan searched Trump's face, unsure. Politicians promise things all the time. But something in his tone felt different. Trump pointed toward the crowd. "You deserve a system that doesn't punish you for being human. You deserve support without shame. I won't pretend I have every answer today. But I'll tell you this, I'm listening, and I won't forget what I heard here." The square erupted, not with blind cheering, but with applause that came from truth recognized. For Ethan, a weight shifted. Maybe today would matter. His thoughts drifted to Grace, her hands planting flowers by the farmhouse window, her laughter carrying across the fields, her whisper, "Keep the land alive, Ethan. Promise me." Tears welled. He hadn't meant to share, but the truth pressed forward. "My wife fought cancer with everything she had," he said, voice cracking. "When the bills came, she told me not to worry. She said love was worth more than land. She told me to keep fighting, even if it meant losing everything. I buried her by the oak tree on our farm. And every day since, I've asked myself, am I honoring her or failing her?" The square went still. Melania's eyes shimmered as she stepped closer. "You honored her," she said firmly, "by choosing love over money, by planting seeds in her memory, by carrying her forward." Ethan's knees weakened. For the first time in years, he felt absolved. The mayor approached, visibly shaken. "Ethan, I've known you my whole life, and I'm ashamed it took this moment to realize what you carried." Others nodded, murmuring agreement. Farmers who once viewed each other as rivals now looked like brothers in arms. Trump lifted his hand. "This isn't just about policy, it's about community. Don't wait for Washington to save you. Stand together," Melania added softly. "Healing begins with compassion, neighbors, helping neighbors." For years, Ethan had felt alone. But as he looked around, he saw dozens of families carrying the same weight. Silence had been replaced with solidarity. A confrontation had turned into a movement as the event wound down. Ethan started to slip back into the crowd, ready to return to his quiet life. But Trump stopped him. "Ethan," he called, "don't go yet. You spoke for many today. I want you to sit with me and Melania after this event. I want to hear more from you directly." The crowd gasped. A farmer, invited to meet privately with the President and First Lady. "Unthinkable," Ethan stammered. "I don't know what to say." Melania smiled gently. "Say yes, because your story can guide change." The applause that followed was thunderous. Inside the town hall, away from cameras, Ethan poured his heart out. He spoke of debts, sleepless nights, neighbors too ashamed to admit they were drowning.